Vanessa Campagna. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right.
That's good.
Yeah. I met you playing with the Columbus Jazz Orchestra only about a month ago,
Yes, I know.
and it seems like so much longer.
It really does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I was just
Yeah.
talking to a friend tonight, and she was like, Christmas feels like it was 3 months ago. And that's
Yeah.
how I feel too.
Right. Except for we're still in Christmas. There's 12 days of Christmas,
Yes,
right?
there
So
is.
we're still in
Yes.
Christmas, and let's see here. So what is it? It ends. What is it? January 6th. So what's
Mm-hmm.
today? Today's the what is it? The
Third.
third.
Got three
I
more.
don't know. We got two more solid days of Christmas.
Yeah.
At least. Yeah.
And it snowed in Nashville. It snowed in Nashville today. And that's very
Interesting.
rare. People were going
Yeah.
crazy.
Let's see. What was this? It must have been. Yeah, it was Sunday. So what is today? Today's Monday, isn't it?
Yes, it is Monday.
So yes. So yesterday, I'm the I'm the MD at a church in town, and I take my son with me, and he's 8, and he sits with the band. This is a nice organic way to see if a kid is going to want to do music because it's
Totally.
great musicians, and it's a real music kind of church, you know. So he's sitting by the drummer, and but you remember I was telling you before we started rolling that there's a pile of stuff where you can't see. His drums is part of that pile of stuff. So I
Oh,
bought him a
cool.
set of drums. So he sits by the drummer. So anyhow, we got packed up to leave after church was over, and it was snowing. And that was the first day it had snowed. And he's 8, so he's like, "Oh, it's not going to be a white Christmas," and it's like every day, it's like, "Oh, still no snow, still no snow," and he's been begging to have a snowball fight.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we got to have a snowball fight. So my wife, she bought these cotton snowballs. It's not snow; it's cotton balls. They're these, thing, and they're kind of have a little bit of density to
Mhm.
them. So if you whip them at each other, you can feel it pretty good when it hits you just right.
Totally. I've used them. I've used them before.
So, and she even got this launcher, this plastic
Oh, that's
launcher.
cool.
But it takes the snowballs that fitted that one are a little smaller, and so we're in there in the family room whipping them around and stuff like that. So he was happy with that. But it snowed a little bit, but nothing stuck. It's been really strange weather, kind of unseasonably warm, and then all of a sudden cold, and then snowing in weird places like Nashville. I know in DC right now, they had a pretty significant storm.
Yeah.
So it's all over the place.
Well, it was
But
75 degrees a day ago, and then it snowed today. So that's been really interesting.
yeah,
But we're kind of used to that here. I mean, the weather in Nashville is always kind of crazy, but it's always pretty warm throughout the year. Um, so everyone's pool is still kind of open, and so to watch the snow like fall and hit like the pool and all of this stuff is it's just kind of fun, and it's just a little dusting, but everybody here kind of freaks out and like doesn't go to work, doesn't go to school. It doesn't even hit the roads. But people freak out because they're just not used to it. But I come from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so I am used to that. I mean, we went to school with 22 inches of snow on the ground, so
yeah, that's what's up. I mean, I grew up in Michigan, and then I went to school at Western Michigan University, and
oh,
so
then you know
uh,
cold.
oh yeah, and in addition to the Michigan cold, we got the lake effect when I was in
Right.
Kalamazoo. In fact, the university is built on a heated road system.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so basically it's kind of like basically what they're saying by that. This is the subtext. We don't care how much snow, you're still going to class.
Right.
See, that's
Exactly.
that's what they're saying.
Yep.
Uh and that's true. Even when there
Yeah.
was these huge piles of snow, taller than me,
You
we were
still
still
went.
going to class.
Yep.
Yeah. But even in places like Kalamazoo and in Michigan and Columbus, um, it's like something is strange. It's like people forget what snow is, and it's
Yeah.
like the first time they see it every year, it's just a bunch of foolishness. People they act like they don't know how to drive. Stuff is it's all kind of crazy.
Oh, I know. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I think
All
people act
right.
like they don't know how to drive everywhere all the time.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. I've learned how to be quite a quite a defensive driver
Me too.
because yeah, and I grew up with motorcycles. I was my dad had motorcycles, and so I was 2 years old like that when I first started riding motorcycles, and then of course I have my own, and in my own driving, you don't have bumpers on a motorcycle.
Right.
There's no
No, you
metal
don't.
around you.
Right.
So you learn how to be a defensive driver. So I
For
think
sure.
that kind of travels with me when I get into a car. So I'm pretty defensive. Stuff like drive in a straight line. If it's slippery out, you drive in a straight line. And you leave lots of space.
Right.
It's pretty. It's not really hard stuff. I mean, it's pretty simple.
It is. That is so true.
Yeah. All right. So as I was saying, I mean, we met playing with the Columbus Jazz Orchestra, and you sounded terrific every night.
Thank you so much. It was just an
Terrific,
honor to
terrific,
be on
terrific.
that stage with all of you. That was incredible. The sound coming off that stage was amazing.
Yeah, we honk it out. Um, yeah, it's a great band, and we've had a lot of. It's a subscription series kind of thing that we do. We had some wonderful artists, some great singers, um, and of course, you're at the top of that list.
Oh, thank you.
Terrific, terrific singing. You have great control, and you have your pitch is very good. I mean, all of that kind of stuff. So usually when I hear singers that have really really good pitch,
Hmm.
there's it makes me wonder if they play an instrument.
Well, thank you for your compliment, by the way. But I do actually play the piano, but I don't play well, and I play by ear. So I don't actually know how to read notes or any of that. I've tried. I took classes, and um, I could never grasp it. My mom actually, I think I might have been like 11, 12, 13 is when I was like taking piano lessons. And I would go in and I would start playing, and my piano teacher, right before she would dismiss me, she would be like, "Okay, this is your assignment for next week. You need to play this song. Um, you'll need to have this song prepared." And I'm like, "Okay, can you just play it for me real quick before I leave?" She's like, "Oh, sure, of course." So she would play it, and I would go home, and I mean, I remembered it from her playing it for me, and that's how I would practice. And my mom was like, "Can you play me your song?" So I played her the song, in my eye, like I was playing what was on this page, and my eyes were over here. And she walked me to the piano teacher the next day, and she was like, "Can I ask you a question? Does she ask you to play the song for her every week before she leaves?" And she's like, "Oh yes, every week." And every week I do. And she's like, "Oh yeah, she's not learning it."
Thank you so much for watching my video so far. If you'd like to support, there are several ways to do so below. Also, likes are free. Please comment, share, and subscribe. Now back to the video.
She's like, oh yeah, she's not learning anything. She's totally playing by memory. And the teacher was just like, oh my goodness. And so needless to say, that was my last piano lesson. And I tried, I can play the guitar a little bit, but again, I can't read notes. I just play from feeling, and I can also play the harmonica and I don't know how to play that either. I just play it from feeling. So I'm good at pitch, but I don't know if it has anything to do with being able to play an instrument.
Well, I mean, so, I'm an academic and I'm interested in certain kinds of research points. One area that has become an interest of mine is perfect pitch, relative pitch, all these things that are on this sort of spectrum of recognizing pitch and then being able to accurately replicate whatever the pitch is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've had, on this same program, I've had a number of folks with perfect pitch, a number of folks that maybe didn't have perfect pitch, but we had good conversations about ear training and all of that kind of stuff. So, case in point, Rick Beato. Rick Beato, his son, he figured out a way to develop perfect pitch in his own research. Now, Rick does not have perfect pitch, but his son does. And his son does because when his son was still in the womb, he started playing this really dense harmonic, harmonically dense, music, in challenging dissonant music, and continued doing that when he was very young. And that's one of the things that is in common with everyone that develops perfect pitch. You can't develop perfect pitch beyond a certain age.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So I don't know what the exact age is, but let's say the age is 5 or 6 or something like that. That might be old, actually on the old side. But once you get beyond a certain age, you're no longer able to develop perfect pitch. However, anyone can learn how to use a frame of reference and remember a frame of reference. But that's not perfect pitch, because you're using your memory, you're remembering a pitch as opposed to not needing a frame of reference.
Right.
So we can teach ourselves very well if we have a good frame of reference. The reason I asked you the question about, or I mentioned the thing about wondering if you played an instrument, is because in almost every case, either the person has perfect pitch or they play piano or another instrument, and
Gotcha.
they've learned where the pitches are.
Right.
And so in your situation, in your case, now I didn't ask you this question, but do you have perfect pitch?
I don't know. So Marvin Hamlish, who was one of my mentors, told me that I did. I don't know if I actually do or not. And because when you were just explaining it to me, I can sing you almost any song in the key that it is actually in. But I can't, if you played me a note right now, I couldn't tell you what note that was.
All right, let's test that. What note?
I have no idea.
You don't know?
Absolutely none. Was it C?
Okay, so no, it was a G. But here's the thing. Let me say something, because this whole thing is on a spectrum. So I talked to the great pan flutist Damian Dragici, who has perfect pitch, and we had a pretty interesting conversation. He thinks that this thing is more of a spectrum and is less about sort of on or off. Either you have this or you don't.
Hmm.
So I have a particular capability. So especially with the instruments that I have played the longest, which is saxophone, flute, and clarinet, because I started very young. Now I started when I was 6, but if anyone is playing those instruments, I can tell you what notes they're playing. I know what notes they're fingering. Like
Okay.
without, I can,
Right.
I'm not looking, but I listen to a recording and I know what notes they're actually playing.
Hmm.
And the instrument could be detuned, so they
Mhm.
could have it pushed in, like to play a quarter tone sharp or a
Right.
half step sharp, and I'll still be able to tell you what notes they're fingering because I'm keying in on the timbre.
Right.
Like all of the notes sound different,
Hmm.
right? But but I can't do that on a keyboard instrument because the
Okay.
instrument because the notes don't really sound different, not within the same range,
Right.
right? I can tell you if we're higher up or we're lower down, of course, in extremes. But as far as stuff that's in the middle of the keyboard, I wouldn't be able to tell you what those notes are.
Hmm.
And same thing would be the case about organ. Now, I play bass and guitar. Now, on those instruments, the way I would figure out what notes that are being played is I would wait. I mean, I can hear the difference in the notes because the strings are different thicknesses and the notes sound different as you go up and down the fingerboard, right?
Uh-huh.
And even if you find the same pitch on different strings, it sounds different. So it will be
Hmm.
more about which string and which fret the
Right.
string is in, right? So
Right.
you can get pretty close to stuff. And I've also noticed that there's quite a few people that actually do have perfect pitch, but the way that they access their perfect pitch seems to be associated not with, is this a G, is this a B flat, is this a C? Not that way, but by stuff like what you just said about singing a song in the key that it actually is
Hmm.
in, because you remember it.
So it counts.
So I think it does count, and like I said, because I don't think this is it's not an on or off
Right.
kind of thing, and I think you can have certain aspects of it without having the other aspects,
Right.
which would be the same in my case. I mean, I don't have perfect pitch in that if somebody plays some random note on the keyboard, I wouldn't be able to tell you what it is. But if you play a note on one of the instruments that I play, I know the note that you're fingering.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's
Well,
kind of
that
a
makes sense. That makes
yeah.
total sense. I wish I knew, and I wish I was able to learn. But like I said, I've tried so many times, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm not good at math. I was terrible at math. I always was excelled at creative writing and literature and anything like that. And then the whole, like, complete opposite ends of the spectrum with math. So, it's all numbers and scales and stuff like that. So maybe that's why it just doesn't compute for me.
Well, it's interesting the math and music thing because the sort of music theorists, uh, you know, in many respects they're accessing the music from more of a numbers perspective,
Right.
whereas though I think composers, songwriters like yourself, they're aware of those principles, maybe not because they know what the terminology is, but because all of the music that's around us is using those principles all the time, and we're going to be influenced by the stuff that we listen to. And so
Right.
we tend to learn principles that way.
Right. That's true.
Um,
That makes sense.
yes. All right. So, um, now you said something. Okay. So you are, what, what are you, 95 pounds?
95. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll take it. No, I'm 110.
Okay. Okay. I wasn't that far off.
Mm-mm.
Um, so you're in, you're in great shape,
Thank
but
you.
you were, you know, you were making some jokes in the song, one of the songs that you wrote. Um, you're talking about baking bread and stretch pants, and the implication there is eating a lot of bread and this kind of stuff. Uh, it doesn't seem like you do much eating of bread. Um,
That's good. That's my grandmother would love you right now because she'd be like, "See, that's what I said. That's what I say to you." Because she's always, I go home and she's like, I can see the bones in your neck. You're not eating enough."
oh,
Right, straight from the old country, my nonna. But yeah, no, I eat. I definitely eat. I love bread, but I don't eat it a lot when I am here in Nashville because it doesn't make me feel great. I always feel exhausted when I eat it. But I grew up on pasta and bread and just carbs, carbs, carbs for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, pancakes for breakfast, muffins, like bagels, all of the things. My mom was always baking. So I had like everything there, which is incredible. I love being at home eating all of that stuff. But when I moved to Nashville, I realized that I was like 30 pounds. I was 30 pounds heavier than I am now. And the reason that I even lost weight was because I didn't really know anybody when I moved here. So I thought I was just going to jump right in and start writing and start singing and doing all of that stuff, but I didn't know a whole lot of people. I knew maybe a handful of people. So I went and joined a gym. And when I joined that gym, I met people there, and then I was like, well, I don't have anything to do, so I would spend like 3 hours at the gym every day. And I ended up getting like super toned and muscular, and then like at one point I turned into like kind of looking like I could be in a weightlifting competition, and then I was like, okay, I don't know if I want to go that far. Then I like stepped it back a little bit, and now I've finally hit the place that I love and that I want to be at. And um I'm lighter than I was in high school, and I just feel best at this weight. And I still eat, like, I eat one meal a day, which people think I'm insane. And my family is like, what is wrong with you? But I eat one big meal a day, and then I fast the rest of the time. I will have some snack, like nuts and like fruit here and there if I'm like starving. But for the most part, it's one big meal a day. Otherwise, like, I'm working all day and I'm writing and I'm creating, and I get brain fog if I eat more than that. And I have to be careful what I eat too, because like I said, carbs just, I just crash and I just want to go to sleep, even though I love them so much. But
so that's a great story. I'll tell you. I'm a fitness advocate, and I think not enough musicians, not enough artists are serious about, I think, fitness. And the thing is that if you take care of yourself, then you'll be able to do this longer.
yeah,
First of all, you'll probably live longer, but secondly, you'll be able to do it with more intensity. You won't get tired doing it
right.
as quickly. And so all of that stuff is that's great. And I remember you mentioning something about losing 30 pounds or being 30 pounds heavier when you were,
Hmm.
in Columbus, as part of your remarks with the audience,
Yeah,
which you're you're great at that.
thank you.
Yeah. Well,
I just
you
tell them the
just
truth.
well you are okay. So you're an attractive young lady. You're super talented,
Thank you.
um, and you don't meet the stereotype for an attractive young, talented singer. One that would be more standoffish, less interested in kind of being maybe genuine and approachable. You're totally approachable. You're
Oh,
easy to talk to. You're warm. You're friendly. All this kind of stuff. I think.
thank
I
you.
think.
That makes me feel so good.
Well, I'm yeah. Okay. So I'm a pretty shy person. Well, I'm an introvert, right? And
Would you
I'm
know
very
that I'm
much.
an introvert too?
I'm not surprised by that actually. I'm not surprised because I think it takes an introvert. Oh, okay. You don't necessarily have to be an introvert to be a great musician, a great artist, but it helps, right? Because you have to spend a lot of time by yourself,
You do. Yeah.
right? And if you sort of restore your uh, if you restore your sort of energy by yourself, that's a good thing.
Right.
Um, you know, the pandemic has, there's been negative things about it, and it's put a kibosh on a lot of work, a lot of
Yeah.
gigs and everything else, and there's been some uh, unfortunate occurrences, people losing their lives and stuff like that, and
I know.
there's a lot of that stuff that's happened. But to be honest, uh, I've been maybe more productive during this period of time
I have been
because
too.
I don't mind spending time by myself.
Right. Me too. Last year, 2020 and 2021 were my most successful and productive years because
Mm,
I got to spend time creating. So
mm,
I was like touring for 3 years before that. And I like, well, I don't love touring because I love being here and I love I love
me
like being in
neither.
my
I,
spot.
uh, I don't like touring very much either. I mean, anytime somebody asks me to do it, of course I say yes because I realize that
Right.
it's
I do
it's
too.
it's a necessity. I'll tell
Right.
you, if once I get past about a week gone, I start getting super homesick.
I do too. I do too. I love touring. I've done a few European tours and those have been really incredible. But even towards the end of those, I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I'm so ready. And it's nothing against, the people that you're out there with or any of that. It's just for me personally, I love my space. I've created it to be this little oasis for me that makes me feel safe and makes me feel creative. And the whole reason that I moved to Nashville was to create. I moved here to write songs for myself, for other artists, but mainly for myself. And so when I'm out on the road, it's a totally different schedule. You're eating at different times, you're working out when you can, you're sleeping on a
Right.
bus, your neck is all kinked and like sometimes I would wake up with a headache every morning from the pressure,
Mhm.
um, and then just like changing time zones every day and all kinds of stuff. I love the payoff at the end of the day, which is being on stage for an hour and a half and singing your songs to those people that came to see you. That is worth all of it for me. but it can be really tough on your body, your mind, and everything. And so for me, these 2 years of sitting in this apartment working it's been amazing because I've finally released songs. I've had more cuts this year because I've written more songs. And you know I I had a number one song with Michael W. Smith called Waymaker, and it was such an
Yeah,
amazing
it's on
song.
the wall behind you.
It is. Yeah, I don't have to move, you see it. But yeah, so that was amazing. That song, I really believe the only reason that it did what it did was because it happened during the pandemic and people needed to hear those words. And um when I heard that song for the first time, I was blown away by it. It was originally written and performed by a Nigerian artist named Sanok, and it was amazing. But I mean, she released it I think like 10 years ago, and
Yeah.
it was really big over there, but it had never really made its way to the States. And then I did it with Michael W. Smith and his incredible band at Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Tennessee, which is the big hockey arena there, and there are like 16,000 people from all over the world for a worship night. And I got to sing that song with him. The video ended up going viral, and then he asked me to do a radio single with him, and he was like, "Hey, if you really want to do this, I need you to pray about it and I need you to think about it seriously because this song could change your life." And I was like, "No, I want to do it." And he's like, "No, like really, just take some time and think about it." And I did, and I was like, I want to do this. I love this song. It's amazing. It has such a message that I want to be able to spread to people. I want to be a part of that. But I could have never imagined what it was going to do. And um the the I mean, I've always believed in music therapy and the power of a song, and this just showed it. I mean, I was having messages from people that didn't even believe in God, and they were just like messaging me saying, "This song changed my life. I don't know what it's doing. I don't know what it means, but I feel something from it, and I want to thank you because it's giving me some sort of hope." And so that's like the greatest thing in the world. Like, or when people are going through a really hard time, and that so many were at that time, they're like, "Your voice is the thing that's getting me through." Or seeing the hundreds of healthcare workers joining hands on top of the hospitals with thousands of cars in the parking lot, all playing that song from their speakers and singing it. I was like, oh my goodness. I mean, I did not write those lyrics, but I wish that I did. And I'm just so grateful that I got to be a part of so many lives and so many transformations in people's lives from that song. It was absolutely incredible for me. So the past 2 years have been, I know they've been really hard for most people, but they've been a blessing for me in so many ways.
So, you're a Christian, and I asked you about this, and we were messaging or whatever.
Hmm.
I was trying to get our interview set up, and I said something. Well, I asked you something. I was trying to figure out. So, a former student of mine, Josh Beatty, who lives in Nashville,
Hmm.
was
Oh
trying to
yeah.
make that connection.
Yes.
He's a terrific musician. I think you guys would. You have a lot in common, and so I think,
Well,
I
absolutely.
think it could be a good. Yeah, I think it would be a good
Yeah.
connection for you.
I would love
But
that.
anyhow, yeah, yeah. But anyhow, uh, what was I saying? Uh,
You were talking about, you said I'm a Christian. We messaged about that a
oh
little
yeah,
bit.
right. And
Yeah.
then I've seen, and you said you're Catholic, and which I'm not surprised you're Catholic. You're Italian. Um,
Right?
and we were talking a little bit about this icon.
Yes. It's
Yeah.
such a beautiful photo.
Yeah. This icon I have in here, and he's always, I got to make sure I'm, you know, behaving in here. To be
He's
my best
watching
behavior.
over.
Watching me. That's right. And so this icon, so one side of his face, well, let's do this side first. One side looks a little more stern, and then the other one looks a little more, kind of peaceful and
Right.
inviting and forgiving and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
But you're Catholic. I'm Orthodox, actually. Eastern Orthodox.
Hmm.
I was married in a Greek church.
Okay.
Yeah,
Have a
and
lot of Greek friends.
no, so the church I attend is actually an OCA church, Orthodox Church of America, which is sort of a cousin of the Russian Orthodox Church.
Hmm.
And but it's all the same. It's all the same church. But so the church that I belong to, it's actually English, so I don't
Hmm.
actually have to know another language, which is nice.
That is
Um,
good.
but yeah, I mean that was a there's a conversion story there somewhere, but I didn't grow up Orthodox. Um, but the spirituality thing for me, my faith sort of has a way of how can I say, um, so Christianity seems to be the most coherent, explanatory worldview, the thing that makes the most stuff make sense. There's all
Hmm.
kinds of stuff that's confusing, that doesn't make sense, that and that I'll probably never get an answer to. But at least with the Christian worldview, there seems to be the most explanatory power of of any of the religions that I've studied.
Uh-huh.
I was a comparative religion when I was in college, my undergraduate degree,
Okay.
and so that's of interest. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about how your faith has been important, maybe impactful to your songwriting, to your career? I mean, you just shared this story about Waymaker, and I know that you've also done some touring with CC Winans.
Yes, Cece's awesome. I love Cece. She's one of the greatest and always will be. And she's one of the sweetest people. Have you ever met her?
I haven't. Oh, no, that's not true. I'm sorry. I did meet her. I met her because she came and sang at a church I used to work at. And someone that uh, sings with her frequently, and is good friends with her, and was sort of mentored by her, is Dr. Nia Allen.
Oh
Um,
yes,
and
I remember listening to her because she sang with you guys before, right? Did she do a Christmas show with you?
yeah, I
Yeah.
think it was right. That's right. That's right. It was a while. It was a while back, and her and Dr. Milton Ruffin,
Okay.
who's her dad, they wrote the song "Wait," and that song is or was at the top of uh, the Christian song. What is it? What is the gospel? What is it?
The CCM
CCM.
chart?
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was at the top of the CCM chart.
Hmm.
Um, oh, I'm sorry. It was at the top of the Billboard chart.
Was it the Billboard CCM charts?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think
that's
so. So,
awesome.
but anyhow, but talk a little bit about your faith and how it impacts your musicianship and the kind of person that you're trying to be.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up like you said, I grew up Catholic and received all of my holy sacraments and all of that stuff. And I went to Catholic school as well. So I always just kind of grew up with a sense of like, you have to do the right thing, always do the right thing. And my parents always instilled that in me, my grandparents, my whole family, everybody was just always be honest, do the right thing. And so um, that's all I really knew. Um, I had never I had never even known that Christian music was a thing. Because I didn't grow up in that. I only knew, the church hymns. Um,
Right.
and so when I moved to Nashville and met Michael W. Smith and got kind of thrown into that world, I didn't even know who he was. I sang on his one album, and they were like, "Hey, can you come in and sing some stuff on this guy's album?" And I did, and then I had no idea who he was. And then he asked to meet me, and I went and I met him at the studio, and he was just the coolest guy. And then we continued to work together, and then we started to become friends, and then we started to write together and work together more. And but it wasn't until I really went out on tour with him that my eyes were opened to the whole Christianity side of things, like that whole world where people were, worshiping like with their hands in the air. And I that was foreign to me. I had
Like
seen
the
it
evangelical thing.
yeah, I had seen it, on TV and stuff, but I had never experienced it. Um, and so I never really understood what, I don't know. I didn't really understand why people did that until I started singing that music. And I was like, wow, there's something to this. There's really something in this. And for years that I had been living here, I have my team of people that I love so much. And we would write songs every day, all day, whether they were for me or for other artists. And I would record them and would be like, all right, this is going to be the one. This is what we're going to put out. This is it. Like, it's time. And everybody back at home was like, when are you releasing music? When are you releasing music? And I would never release a song because it never felt right. It never felt like the lyrics matched what I felt inside. And I didn't really know what that meant. I just knew that it wasn't right. And I couldn't release this to the world as me. I can write all the sexy songs in the world. I can write, the best relationship song. But, there was something that was disconnected with me when I would want to put my name and my face on it and say, here you go, world. This is Vanessa Campagna. So when I started touring with Michael,
You're unusual. Yes, that ain't what they, your age, in your age group, that is not what, that's not what the young ladies are saying. They're not saying that kind of thing.
no, I know.
Good for
But
you. Good for you.
thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. But yeah, so I just, and I would get frustrated with myself too. And we would just bash our heads against a wall. That's what it felt like. We're like, why isn't this clicking? Why isn't this working? And it wasn't working because it wasn't the right time and it wasn't the right thing. So when I went out on tour with Michael, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And I didn't love every single song that we were singing, but there were those certain songs that were like, I could feel there would be no air conditioning on in the room, and the hair on my arms would stand up, and like there would be a wind against my back. And I really started paying attention to those moments and when they were. And it was during a song called Do It Again. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's it's like, um, they say you're moving mountains, and I believe you're gonna do it again. You made a way when there was no way, and I believe you're gonna do it again. So that is a prayer that I had been praying my entire life from the time I was little until, I mean, I still do, but I never realized that until honestly, like the end of this last tour. I never realized that that's the prayer that I pray every single night that I made up in my head. And that's the song that changed my life out there. And so
Mm.
when I would sing that song, and there's another one called Greater You Lord, we would sing that song. Those melodies were just so beautiful to me. And they're so powerful. The melody itself moves you and makes you feel something. And then the lyric on top of it is just beautiful. And so while I don't walk, I don't talk the talk when it comes to like the Christian stuff. Like I'm not good at, people have asked me to pray over them, and I'm not that. I can't do that. That's not what I grew up doing. I don't know how to do it. And I'm like a very internal, like I pray for you inside. And
And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way.
no, thank you. And but that, so for me, I was like, my mind was just constantly going. I'm like, okay, how do I put this all together? Because these songs make me feel something, but I also want to be able to speak to more than just one group of people. Like I want whatever my message is to be universal, and I want it to speak to everybody. And I want people to know that wherever you are on your walk with God, he's not judging you, and he loves you, and love is the center of everything. And like it was just all of this stuff that I was going through on my mind, in my mind. And then aside from God, I wanted people to know that it's okay to be who you are. You shouldn't be afraid of that. Like I hate bullying. I have always hated bullying, and I was always the person that would stand up for the kid that was getting bullied in school, because to make somebody feel like they're less than you, or to just make them feel like they're weird for being different. Different is beautiful. Different is amazing. It's unique. It's wonderful. It's why we have that's why the world is beautiful in so many ways, because everyone has a different talent. Everyone
if you're a copy,
different.
if you're a copy, you're not necessary.
Exactly. So I was just like, I want to find a way to create music that speaks to everybody. And so by touring out there and hearing those big, huge melodies that I loved so much, because at the time I was creating music when like all of these artists were coming out, and they were not really opening their mouth when they were singing. And they were like, it was very like whispery. I'm like I grew up on Whitney Houston, Celine Dion, like Vanessa Williams, those, Toni Braxton.
You have a big voice.
Thank you. But I wanted to show that in my music. But I wanted to be able to write these songs that were personal and truthful and honest, and still sing those big, big melodies. And I wasn't really hearing that as much in music at that time. I was hearing like huge melodies, but not as personal of a lyric. Or I was hearing a super personal lyric with zero big melodies. And I was like, okay, we've got to put all this together. So this, in 2020, when I got locked in my apartment, like everybody else did, I just sat down and started writing. I started writing how I felt about everything. I started writing my feelings. And then I, took them to my friends that are producers and these incredible composers, and we created these songs that are now what I'm going to be releasing to the world. And so this all wraps back into my faith, and my faith is I have a really wonderful relationship with God. I know he's with me every day. I know I talk to him every day, and I pray to him every day. And I want to show him through my music in a way that I'm just showing love, because I think like he is love, and it's the center of everything. So that's that's kind of where I'm at with all of it. And I've kind of infused it all together. I've infused Catholicism and Christianity, and like I love different aspects of both. So I just kind of like mesh them together for
Right,
me.
right.
And I know a lot of people would probably disagree with that, but that's what works for me, and that's what makes me feel closest to him. So
Yeah, yeah. Of course, Catholicism is Christianity. You
right, right,
mean sort of Protestant evangelical
right.
CCM.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, uh, there are a lot of great CCM songs
there are.
in every way that you would consider what is a good song. The lyric, the melody, the
Hmm.
production, the all of that stuff. And there's a lot of great music. And I worked at a church for 5.5 years as the creative director. It's a big evangelical church, a very guitar driven, and we did a lot of those songs. Um, and I have even in other kinds of churches because I was 4.5 years, well, just over 4 years at a church that I left in May, and a lot of those same CCM songs, including "Great Are You, Lord," even including that song that you just said. It was a song that we did, uh, and now I'm at another church that I just started in December, and some of those songs are still there. It's an interesting sort of because the last two churches that I've been, the MD, have been black churches and more of the gospel thing. But I
Hmm.
mean, we just did Waymaker uh, a couple weeks ago,
Hmm.
and so there's a lot of there's a lot of great music there.
There
You know,
are.
in the early church, there was a less convoluted, less sort of segregated way to talk about the arts, to talk about music.
Hmm.
And that was that whatever is beautiful glorifies God.
I love that.
Whatever is beautiful glorifies God. And the thing is that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? So there'll be
Right,
some things that are quite beautiful to some folks, and other folks it's not their cup of tea. But
right.
either way, whatever is beautiful glorifies God. And what we've done, unfortunately, and this is all uh, byproduct artifacting from the Protestant Reformation, there is this sort of um, need to categorize stuff as either sacred or secular.
Hmm.
And it's a false dichotomy because first of all, it's not the original intent. That was not the way that things were discussed. Whatever is beautiful glorifies God.
Right.
But secondly, um, I think what's happening is there's a confusion of the purposes of the song
Hmm.
versus um, uh, not the sincerity, but the goodness, the redeeming quality, whatever you want to say, the
Right.
beauty, the internal beauty. So, yes, we know that there is certain music that serves a liturgical function,
Right.
but that is not to say that that music is sacred and everything else is therefore secular,
Right.
right? Now, I think we can agree that "Baby Take Your Clothes Off," that ain't, those kind of
That's
songs.
that's not a church song.
That's not a right. That's not a church song, and I think we can say, hey, what I want kids listening to this,
Right.
and then it's like, well, then okay, in certain kind of language and maybe certain topics discussed with maybe too much frankness, or whatever. I think those are things that you can deal with on a case by case basis.
Mhm.
But to sort of throw the baby out with the bathwater, and to
Right.
make this clear line, like, hey, either you're doing the holy stuff or you're doing the devil's music, I think is a mistake.
I agree
I'm a
with that
jazz
as well.
musician. I'm a jazz musician, so so I'm already playing the devil's music. So so I'd be in trouble. But
Well, and that's kind of what I want my music to show people too, is that like, and I know that's like a huge line that I'm trying to cross here, but I just it doesn't have to be one or the other. You know what I mean? Like a song with a great message. I think it
Mm.
just speaks.
Yeah.
Like if it's love and it's kindness and it's being true to yourself, I think it all falls in the same lines, and we have seen that a little bit in CCM music, which is really exciting, with like a young artist named Leanna Crawford. She's amazing, and I did some touring with her. She's got a song called Mean Girls, and it talks about how you can't let them get to you, kind of thing. So, and there's like a just very Lauren Daigle songs. I know they're
yeah, that's
they're
who I was
totally
about to mention.
Christian. They're
Yeah.
about God, but they cross over and they make people go, "Oh, oh, okay." It's just it's so broad, but still is so special and sacred. And I just love that. I think it's really powerful when a song can speak to everyone instead of just one group of people.
Yeah, and I think I'll say this. Churches often make the mistake of producing messaging and content that basically is to themselves, right? I'm talking, hey, I know you've been in the church for, I know the kind of
Right.
stuff you like to hear me say, hey, so and some of that is, I think, is okay because you want to encourage each other, and
Yeah, of course.
but I don't think that's really the mission of the church, right? I think once this person is in, now you're not supposed to be thinking about them anymore. You're supposed to be thinking about the folks that ain't in.
Right.
And that's that whole message that Jesus, delivers when, leaving the flock of sheep for the one,
Mm-hmm.
that
Yep.
whole thing. That's what that's
99
about,
for
right?
the one. Yep.
That's right.
Reckless
That's
love.
right. That's right. So now you mentioned this thing about bullying, and you know, so there were some opportunities. Well, okay. I don't want to. Do I want to say that? Okay, so I grew up in the country. My family did, and my siblings, in a house where there's a dirt road, and my parents are still in that house, and it's still a dirt road, and 2 acres, horses, 4-wheelers, go-karts, all this stuff. Stuff
That's
that my dad
awesome.
didn't have when he was stuff that my dad didn't have when he was growing up. And he wanted us to have a more sort of country kind of upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we lived in this rural community where we were, I was like, usually the only one. And what I mean by that, I was the only person of color, only black person.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a pretty big school, not a huge school, but a medium sized kind of school and school system. And I remember a few instances when I was very young, when some fifth graders use some choice words or whatever. Um, when I was a first grader and I couldn't do anything, right?
Right.
And I just got it in my head. I said, that ain't gonna happen. So what I decided, what I decided was that I would just, you know, I just become physically imposing so that people would think it would be a foolish move to
Yeah.
threaten me. And it seems to have worked. I've actually never been in a fight.
That's good.
Uh, that part worked, and it also worked well because uh, since I'm a musician and my mouth and hands and stuff are so important, that's not the kind of risk that you want to take.
No. Nope, you can't.
And I could escape because I started when I was 6 and I was playing hours a day. It's all I wanted to do was play uh, play my saxophone. That's all I wanted to do. My dad was a great saxophone player, and so I had 2 to 3 lessons a week and an attentive ear on the practice room.
Mm-hmm.
And he was my teacher all the way until I went to college.
Awesome.
Uh, and so I had a place that I could escape. So if I did feel like things weren't going a certain way, I had something I could pour that into.
Right.
And we didn't have the internet
Nope.
where see this is what this is a part that is totally different than at any time in history. See, it used to be that if you went to school and the bully took your lunch money, you could get away from the bully because when you
Mm-hmm.
went home, you didn't see the bully. At least for the
Right.
weekend, you were away from the bully.
Right. But not now.
Nah, not now. The bully chase you. That's right. Now you're getting cyberbullied, and I'll tell you that is some of the most uh, you know
Oh, it's the
yeah.
worst because you can't escape it. It's like it just swirls around you and it lives forever and you can't delete it and it's the worst. I hate it so much.
That's
It
ridiculous.
it makes me so sad. Um, and what makes me even more sad is that these people know that the people they're bullying, they don't have the self-esteem to be like, I know that's not true. I know that's not the reality, you know? And so they just pick on them even more. And it's heartbreaking to me. Um, yeah, I just, that is something I just can't stand for. People try to do it to me. I mean, I can't tell you how many times. I don't read things really. Like I don't read comments or like reviews or things like that. But sometimes they do come directly to me and you can't really escape them. And those ones are fun because I'm like, "Oh, you really are trying to hurt me right now, but you're not." Because whatever you are projecting onto me is an issue that is deep seated inside of you and you're just
Right.
projecting that onto me and I'm not going to let that bother me because it doesn't affect my day. Like I appreciate that you took the time out of your busy day to get on the computer and type how you felt about my bikini. Like, what? Are you serious? I don't care. I feel good in it. So why should it matter to you? I just, and that's why in my music, I want people to know that it is okay to be who you are. And as long as you're happy with yourself, that's all that matters. Like, I just feel like if people were just a little bit more kind, not a little, a lot, if people were a lot more kind, smiled more, our world would be in a different place. But we are in so much need of love right now. I
Mm.
feel like I you know we're missing a lot of that. And I used to see different displays of humanity daily, and I don't see it as much anymore, and it's really sad. Like I love it when I would be in line in the store, and a woman would just start talking to me, like just like this beautiful Southern woman with this bleach blonde hair. She just would stand there and start talking to me and telling me about her life. And I saw somebody try to do that to someone the other day, and they literally just scoffed at her and like turned around. And I'm like, I think maybe she needed to talk to somebody. Like maybe that was you never know. You just never know what people are going through. You never know what kind of a day they've had. I mean, I look at my life and the things that I go through daily and the emotions that I have, and I suffer from anxiety and panic attacks, and that stuff really weighs on me. And sometimes it's just been a really rough day, but I still have to go out and do something and face the world. And you just never know what people live day to day. So you can't judge somebody for having a bad moment, because they just, this world is crazy right now. I don't know.
So
I think I'm
you
probably
know,
talking in circles, but
no,
you know.
no. It's this is good. What you're saying, it's interesting. We seem to have a few things in common. Uh, One thing that we have in common is uh, anxiety and the panic attack thing.
Mm,
So I went through it was about a year long, really aggressive uh, situation with panic attacks, anxiety, and insomnia.
oh, insomnia. That's something I haven't had.
Oh, yeah, well, mine were connected because uh, I'd have the panic attacks uh, when I would try to lay down, when I try to
Yeah.
go to sleep, and so then I'd have to get up and then and then I become more and more anxious as the day went on because I knew eventually I'd have to lay down and go to sleep, and I knew I was going to have a panic attack. So
Hmm.
then I started having panic attacks all day long. Um, the gym has been a very much a stress reliever for me, and so that was one of the things I missed the most when the gym's all locked down for a few months at the beginning of the
Right.
pandemic.
And that's probably when you needed it the most.
Right, exactly. And I remember, now this was before the pandemic, but I remember, I go to the gym, and then I started to become confused by an accelerated heart rate. I
Oh
started thinking
yeah.
that this is going to be a panic attack,
Right.
right? So then I didn't know the difference between those two things, and that was scaring the heck out of me. So then for a period, I couldn't even work out. Um, it was really bad. I'd say it was for a month and a half. I didn't sleep at all. I was I, I didn't realize this at the time. Uh, I don't know if you know who Jordan Peterson is.
Of course.
Yeah, but Jordan Peterson went through a similar thing. He was and he got hooked on anxiety medication, and people were kind of dragging him and stuff over this. But the reason he got hooked on the anxiety medication is because his wife had cancer, and he was all stressed about that. And then he started developing, insomnia. Then he was getting panic attacks. The same sort of cycle, and it was for
Hmm.
like a month and a half. But it was so bad with him that he ended up having to get, he was in the hospital. Um, so it's like that stuff is very serious, um, and it's challenging because unless you have dealt with that, you can't understand what that is. It's not
Yeah.
possible for people that have not actually experienced that, because if your mind is the thing that is sending out these signals, that it's not it's not imagination. It's not a figment of your imagination.
No, and it's your mind doing all of that, and then it's your mind that has to tell it to not do that. So it's just like, woo, it spirals. And I know it's awful. I mean, running is really helpful for me. Cold showers that's really helpful. It like resets my brain, and I feel that like tingle in my head, and I love it. Everyone thinks I'm crazy when I say that, but it feels so good. And when I first started taking cold showers, it was tough, but I was like in there, like punching in the shower, and it really helps. And it's just like it releases energy, but it also calms you down at the same time. Because when I feel those panic attacks and when I have that anxiety, mostly the panic, I feel like I need to just run away. It's that fight or flight, right? And so
Yeah. Now, do you know what initially brought this on? I know what happened for me that brought it on, but then I also have become aware that I think I am predisposed to this sort of thing. And I had some occurrences when I was much younger that I didn't understand, and I just thought of them as being burnout. But
yeah.
now I realize that I think that they were probably related.
Mine's the same. It's when I was younger, there were some things that, like, I remember having my first one when I was in 8th grade. And I didn't know what it was at the time, but when I started really having panic attacks as I got older, I looked back and I was like, oh, that was the first one. I remember that very, very, very well. But my family also struggles with it as well. I have it on both sides of my family where they both have awful anxiety and panic attacks. So I definitely just kind of come by it honestly. But mine are a little better than some of theirs. I'm usually able to really talk myself out of it, but it got really bad there for a while. 2017 was really rough. I had to drop off the face of the earth for 3 weeks and do nothing but listen to podcasts, meditate, and sit at the pool all day long by myself. And it was nice because nobody was ever at my pool because it was like in April and it was hot and everybody was working. So I would just go underwater and just since the time I was little, laying in a bathtub and putting my head under the water where just like my ears were covered, but like I could still breathe. That sound was so soothing to me, and it calmed me down immediately, and I never knew why. And then I looked that up one day, and it says it's because it resets your mind and your body to being in your mother's womb. And that's why it's so therapeutic to you. And so I do that, and it's helpful. I don't take medication for it because I refuse to. I'm like, you've got to get a handle on this. And I have gotten a lot better, but at the same time, sometimes you can't stop it. And like you said about the working out, it is funny because your heart does the same thing during a panic attack that it does when you're working out. So if that's the truth, right, then when else does your heart rate elevate? When you're excited, when you're anticipating something good, when you get good news, when somebody gives you a gift and you're really excited, like those, I've started to focus on those good times that my heart rate accelerates. And then when I feel it going that way, when I know it's like for the bad reason, I try to flip the switch and go, feel only the good feelings, like feel what would happen if this was happening to you. So, and that has really helped me in a lot of ways as well. So
Yeah, I went to therapy, counseling, and one of the first things that my counselor told me was or asked me. He asked me about family history, and I was like, and I never really considered that, but there is history, there is history there, and so I was like, oh, okay, so that gives me a different perspective on that. So I guess maybe I'm predisposed to dealing with this, to having, having this. And what really helped with the counseling was that the counselor, almost the same thing, like the same issues that I had, they had dealt with,
Yeah.
and so they were able to talk me through. They were able to talk me through certain things. And one thing I remember him saying that really helped me, he says, "Look, a panic attack is like a cloud, and the cloud is not going to stay. It's going to move. It's going to go by.
Yep.
And though it feels um uh though it's intense, it is a feeling, and a feeling that will pass."
Yeah. Because feelings
And
change.
that's right. And the thing is that uh and maybe it sounds simple, uh but the thing is that until you have had that thing in your head, and then you're playing like head games, trying to trick yourself into stuff, it gets so, it's
Oh,
exhausting.
I know. I know it is exhausting.
It's
And that's
exhausting.
why you don't sleep at night.
Right. Now, thankfully, sleeping
Good.
has been
Better?
great, and
Good.
this has been something that has been passed for a couple years. But every once in a while, I'll start to, I'll be like, all
Yep.
right, now,
Oh, I
I need
know.
to chill out. And if I don't chill out, I know what's coming. So
Yes.
okay, calm myself down now.
Yep.
There's that point of no return,
Yeah.
and I want to stay away from that
Right. Totally. Me too. All the time.
as much as possible.
Yeah.
Um, well, Vanessa, is there anything? I mean, so you mentioned a project that you're about to release. Um, maybe you can talk maybe a little bit more about that.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah. I've just been working on like all of the songs that I kind of talked about writing in the past 2 years will finally be released this year, and I'm really excited about that because leading up to this, I've done a bunch of DJ features with an incredible, well, a bunch of different DJs, but I've written them all. All of the songs are written like from the same perspective that my artist stuff will be.
mm,
So it's not just like a dance song. Like people are like, well, when are you releasing your own stuff? I'm like, well, this is my own stuff. I wrote this song. Like, this is my thoughts. Just like all these new songs that are going to be coming out are my thoughts too. So everything, it'll match with this next project. And I'm just super excited about it because I finally get to get it out there in the world and have all of my words out there, and hopefully they help, you know, they help people in some way and they reach the people that they need to reach. So I'm really excited for that. Um, and that's really what I'm mainly focusing on this year is my artist project.
well, good for you. Had a good time. I hope you've enjoyed our conversation.
I have. You're my first podcast.
Oh,
This is awesome. It was really fun,
oh.
and I like to talk if you haven't noticed. So thank you
Yeah,
for
yeah. Well, I'll definitely have you back. I've got a couple other programs I do. I've got a live streaming program that I do
Awesome.
called Thunder's Thoughts. Now that's my spicy content, so that's
Ooh.
that's quite spicy. And
Well, I got to get a taste of that too. I can be spicy.
Well, yeah.
I'm Italian. I got that.
Yeah. Good talking to you.
You too.
See you
See ya.
later.
Bye.
All right.